Jews, the Partnership Program. I'm Amy Zawi. Today we have joining us a recurring guest, Paul Calvert, who resides in Bethlehem and gives us excellent firsthand accountable updates on the situation on the ground among the Arabs, the Palestinians, both Christian and Muslim. And today I wanted to follow up with Paul because recently we had Holy Week and Ramadan, and there's a lot of news reports in the West about the issues and oppression and the difficulties of life for the folks in these areas. And it is really presented as Israel's fault or the result of a bully in bullying these people that are trying to live their lives. Now, there's definitely difficulties for the people, especially the Christian Arabs in these areas, but I invite Paul to share with us his firsthand account of what he sees and the actual happenings in the region. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome back to the program. Coming out of Holy Week and also on the heels of Ramadan, please share with us some updates and your firsthand account that is contrasting some of the narratives we hear in the West from our news sources.
It's good to be with you today. Ramadan is the holiday that was the furthest away because then we've had Holy Week. And Ramadan is a very, very big time, of course, here in Bethlehem. You have many Palestinians, they're fasting, and they're fasting all kinds of things. So they're fasting their food from sunrise to sunset, and they're doing 30 days of fasting. It is quite interesting that Muhammad didn't fast for 30 days. Muhammad fasted for 10 days, but they, of course, they don't know when exactly Muhammad fasted. So they do 10 days before and 10 days after, so that they're doing the same time as Muhammad. So it's a very tense time. It's a very difficult time, very hard for many people here. On the streets in Bethlehem, I think it's actually against the law to be eating on the street in
Wow.
Bethlehem. If you want to eat, you can go into a restaurant. Many food places closed down. So I go up right into Manger Square, and there's always a coffee seller there. He's not selling his coffee during Ramadan. Others shops, they sort of diversify a little bit and change. If they were selling falafel or shawarma, now they'll sell like it's a bit like a scone or a pancake that they sell because they're very popular
Oh,
over Ramadan as well. And
wow.
then, of course, a lot of Muslims want to go to Jerusalem. So they get permission to go to Jerusalem and they go on a Friday. It's a very, very big military-like operation to get everybody out. So special barriers come up. And I've been through, not this time, but the last year I went through at that time. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go through it. It's Ramadan. There's going to be so many people wanting to get through, but you get processed, you go through, then you go in a different direction around here, around there, and then there's a bus. Everybody gets on the bus as fast as possible. The bus is gone, the next one comes in, everybody fills up, and it's a big precision operation getting people out into Jerusalem so that the Muslims can actually go on a Friday, which is their holy day, and pray right there up on the Temple Mount. And there are special times as well where they sleep over there. I think there's a special Friday where they sleep, or 2 days where they sleep right on the Temple Mount there. So it's very important for them. We do know that actually that Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran at all, but they do believe that it's the third holiest place in
Hmm.
Islam. So they're able to go out. Now, this is quite something for Israel to be allowing all these Muslims to come into Israel when we looked at October the 7th, for instance,
Exactly.
when a lot of people that were coming into Israel were working in Israel, and they were spying for Hamas, getting operational details and things like this, taking it back to Hamas. And then, of course, they had that dreadful attack on October the 7th. So Israel really is extending a hand of grace to a lot of Muslims um, to actually go into Israel, because really you don't know what are they going to be doing in there. Are they actually going to go and pray? Are they going to be doing a little bit of spying and working out some things as well? So that's actually what happens in Ramadan. So Ramadan is a very special time, of course, for the Muslims. Here in Israel, it's been a special time to remember the Holocaust. We don't remember that here in Bethlehem. They don't do anything. You may hear the siren from one of the Israeli settlements nearby. We have a frat nearby, and I didn't hear the siren for Holocaust Memorial Day, but I do sometimes hear it when there's a rocket been fired. So their siren goes off for that. So that is a very special time for Israel as well. And the siren goes off, so everything stops. Last year, I went specifically into Jerusalem to the Cord Bridge and stood on the Cord Bridge to look down at the big road junction. And I just filmed everything because all the vehicles just suddenly stop. Some people get out of their cars and they just stand there and show their respect for the 6 million Jews that
Wow.
were murdered during the Holocaust. But like I say, of course, we don't have anything of that happening in Bethlehem. You wouldn't necessarily know what time it was happening. You wouldn't know necessarily that the siren was going off. So nothing happens there. So yeah, that's a good time to remember what happened in the Holocaust.
Wow. So there's a huge contrast between the populations in Bethlehem versus in Israel proper, just even in reflecting on that history. The folks in Bethlehem, Muslim or otherwise, or Christian, just kind of, I guess you're saying they kind of ignore that commemoration, but
Yeah,
Israel makes a special effort, almost in counterintuitive to its own security concerns, to bring busloads of folks in from what we would consider the West Bank, I suppose, into Jerusalem so that they can celebrate and enjoy their holiday. So it's a big contrast in attitudes.
well, it's multi-religious, the Holy Land, really, because you've got many Muslims living here, so they're able to come to Jerusalem if they're if you're an Israeli Arab, you can go anytime you like.
Sure.
You may call yourself Palestinian, even though you're technically Israeli Arab. You've got all the freedoms to worship and do all of that. Then you've got the Christian community; they can get involved in their holidays as well. So we've had quite a number of things happening here in Israel. We had Palm Sunday. Palm Sunday is an excellent time. You go to Bethpage, which is the other side of the Mount of Olives, and that's where they have a march down from the Mount of Olives, going all the way down right into the Lion's Gate and going into the Pool of Bethsaida. And
Wow.
it's a wonderful time. Many people have their palm branches. You have a lot of Christians. They come and they have their guitars. They have everything. And I've got to say, if you're going to go on that, it's a fantastic thing to go on, but get behind some Africans because they really know how to praise and worship. And I've done that, and I was just so blessed. I didn't go out this time, but I know from previous times before, just being so blessed to see the Africans getting excited. But then you had Italians playing guitars and all kinds of other people singing in Finnish and all this sort of things, just coming down the mountain of the Mount of Olives and just rejoicing for that day of Palm Sunday. It's truly a great and exciting time to be in the Holy Land. And as well, Palestinian Christians, they get permission to celebrate Easter in Israel as well. So last year, I think they only got 1 year. Let's go before COVID. So before COVID, basically Palestinians got permission. Even before their permission ran out, the next permission was ready. Then, of course, COVID happened, and that had a great deal effect on the permissions. So there wasn't really much permissions going out. And I'm talking about generally people who had the work, they obviously always get their permissions. But for the general person here who doesn't necessarily work in Israel, so that really affected. Then, of course, October the 7th, that affected. And last year, I think they got 1 week's opportunity to go into Israel. This year, they've got 3 weeks opportunity to go into Israel. So they basically say which 3 weeks you want to go into Israel, and then Israel will decide whether you get the permission. So my friend here in Bethlehem, he's got his permission last week. It's already running, so he's been able to go into Israel. He wants to go to Tel Aviv, so I'm going to take him to Tel Aviv very soon. And also, he would like to go down to the Gaza border community to see what happened on October the 7th. So we want to take him as a Palestinian for him to be able to go and see the Nova Festival, the car cemetery, and some of these things that happened on that event so that he can get to understand and know exactly what happened. But with those permissions, it means that you can actually get involved with some of the holidays that are taking place and the celebrations that are taking place. So Good Friday is a great opportunity to go into Jerusalem as well. I went into Jerusalem this Good Friday. I went to the Garden Tomb, and the Garden Tomb was really full. There was a lot of people there. Last year I went and there was hardly anybody there. It was really sad to see the lack of people that were there. So this year there was much more, which tells me that obviously there's more tourists coming in to
That
the
was my
country at the
next
moment,
question.
which is
Have you noticed an uptick of Christians from, like, not Palestinian Christians or Israeli Christians, but Christians from the international community as tourists coming in? You've noticed an uptick
well,
in.
I think that we're just seeing the numbers that were in the Garden Tomb tells me yes, and I have seen a
Right.
few more people in Bethlehem as well as tourists coming in. So I think tourism, obviously, it's not getting back to what it should, and
Sure.
everyone's still a little bit nervous at the moment. But I think we are probably seeing a slight uptick in the tourism. So going there on a Good Friday and praising and worshiping the Lord is just a great thing to do. I really enjoyed doing that this Good Friday. And then also I went over to the Via Dolorosa just to catch a little bit of a snippet of people carrying the cross. They have a very big march from the Via Dolorosa right up to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And so I got the opportunity to do a video of somebody actually carrying the cross. There was a small group carrying the cross. We did see video on Facebook that there had been an incident during the times of Easter, which is very sad that but these things happen. I know that there was some sort of argument and a policeman pulled a gun, and I don't know what happened. And I think if you don't know what happened, how can you make a comment on it? But sometimes it's it's
Exactly.
it's sent out as, oh, this is Israel stopping the Christians from it. Well, no, it's not Israel stopping the Christians. Things went on. There was just a heated incident. Now, I don't know who was to blame, whether someone was being told you can't do this and they wanted to do it and they were pushing themselves through. So then the policeman forcefully stopped him, or whether the policeman just got a little bit upset about something. We don't know. I don't know what happened. But
Right.
the fact is, these things happen all the time, all around the world. You name a country where a policeman doesn't get upset about
Yeah,
something,
right.
and where a policeman doesn't step in. So this isn't Israel stopping the Christians from worshiping in Jerusalem, because the Christians still got the chance and opportunity to worship in Jerusalem.
Right.
But there was just one incident within everything. Didn't look very nice on Facebook when you saw it, but these things happen. So I think we've got to be careful that we don't jump to, oh, Israel's doing this, Israel's doing that, because it's just not true. There are incidents that happen like any country around the world. So that was Good Friday. And then Holy Saturday was on Saturday. And that was at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where the priests go into the place where they believe that Jesus was buried. And they come out with the fire. And from what I gather, this is supposed to be a miracle. They come in and they receive the fire. And then they bring the fire out. And everybody's there wanting with their candles to burn. Give me fire, give me fire, give me fire. And then the fire is to Bethlehem. So that's where I come in and I go, and I love seeing Palestinian Christians celebrating, rejoicing on the streets. There's an area called Catholic Action where they normally do the celebration, but because of the war, they haven't done it at this point for the last 2 years.
Hmm.
Because usually they do it, then the scouts with their marching, with their bagpipes and everything, then you march into the city of Bethlehem. So they didn't quite do it that way this year. They done it right at the Manger Square, right in Manger Square, right next to the church. So the light came in and the priest got out and everybody's excited. And he brings the light to the priest here in Bethlehem. The mayor is there, everybody's there. And then they walk to the church and then someone lights it. He takes the light and they light the candles and everybody else gets their candles lit. And you have Palestinians, they get on the shoulders and they're doing a shout, a Christian shout, and it's just so wonderful to see. And I love seeing the Palestinian Christians celebrating and rejoicing at this time of the year, because it truly is a time to rejoice that Jesus isn't dead, he's alive. So that happens on Holy Saturday in Bethlehem. So it's a really joyous time as well. And then if you've got your permissions for Easter Sunday, you can go to the sunrise service in Jerusalem at the Garden Tomb and celebrate there. Mike Huckabee there this year, which I didn't know because the guest speaker was from America. He worked at Walk Through the Bible. Phil Tuttle, I think his name was. So I got an interview with him, and he never mentioned anything about Mike Huckabee being there. So then I think he must have just suddenly found out he was speaking to Mike Huckabee from for the USA. So just a really joyous and exciting time to be in Israel, to be in the Holy Land, just celebrating and rejoicing, you know. And of course, the Jews had their Passover time as well. So
Exactly.
when I went into Jerusalem, there was so many Jews in Jerusalem. There was extra security on as well. I did notice there was a lot more soldiers on the street as well. They
Sure.
have the priestly blessing at this time of the year, so you can go down to the Western Wall and have your priestly blessing. They always sell the yeast of the nation as well. So they sell the yeast of a nation to the Arabs, to an Arab. So if you go into Jerusalem now, what you're supposed to do if you're an Orthodox Jew or if you're Jewish, you clean your house during
Mm.
Passover and you get rid of any yeast in the house. So you want to clean behind the chair, behind everywhere, in all the corners to make sure you've got no yeast in the house. You'll throw yeast away. Some of the Orthodox community, they will take all their cutlery and all their plates and they will take them outside and put them in this big vat of boiling hot water, and
Wow.
that will take all the yeast off it as well and everything. They don't obviously sacrifice a lamb. Sometimes I've seen on YouTube where they'll take a chicken and they'll spin it around their head, as a symbol and as a sign. So you get all these sort of things that happen over that time. But a very joyous time and a very happy time as well, and a big, big celebration. But there was a lot of people in Jerusalem this time on the
Wow.
days that I went in over Passover.
And what's interesting is those sort of simultaneous celebrations, the joy, because Passover and Easter did coincide this year, but they're really everybody celebrated alongside each other. There was no conflict, or at least that. Are you aware of any besides that one incident at the church, which was on Good Friday, and that was sort of isolated, nothing really to do with the Jewish population if it was at the sepulcher. Did you hear of any incidents between the Jewish community and the Christian Arab community at all during their celebrations? Did they cross over? Was there any animosity, or was everybody just celebrating the traditions of their faith and the joy that comes with it?
Well, I haven't heard of any animosity.
Good.
Obviously, we saw the video of what happened there, but that's just an incident that happens.
Right.
Uh, no doubt there was probably odd things that happened, but again, like we say, these odd things happen
Yeah,
when there's
people are
tension. When
people.
there's, if you imagine, you've got all of these Jews, and it's so busy with all of these Jews coming into Jerusalem. Then you've got more Christians coming into Jerusalem. Tensions are going to rise. I want to go there, but why aren't you letting me go there? Come on, I just want to go there, and you're not letting me go through. And it can be frustrating, and tensions can rise. But that's part of life, and that's part of what we've got to
Right.
work around and work with. What's interesting this year is there's always two Easters,
Is
because there's
Orthodox.
the Western Easter, then there's the Orthodox Easter. Well, they both came at the same time this
Okay.
year. So what would normally have happened is you'd have the Western Easter, and then a week later you'd have your Orthodox Easter.
Right.
So, but they all came together at exactly the same time this year. So
So that's
big
great.
celebrations for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody have been celebrating
And
since the
the
last
and
time
the
we spoke.
Christians in Bethlehem, they hadn't suffered any, did they suffer any angst from the Muslims in their community, or were the Muslims pretty respectful about letting the Christians have their time? Did that seem to go okay?
As far as I know, everything has been okay. Everything's been
Wonderful.
fine. We've had problems in the past with things that's happened. I have heard there was actually a fight in Bethlehem just this last week, and I heard it was something to do with Christians and Muslims. And I don't know anything about it. I just saw quite a number of times there were these videos. It wasn't anything to do with the holidays, as far as I know,
Okay.
but I actually don't know what it was about. But again, looking at it from that point of view, these things happen. You
Yeah,
have neighbors in England that have rows with neighbors. It gets tense and you go and have a fight as
right.
well.
Or a
We
business
also
deal
had,
goes wrong or something. Yeah.
yeah, we've also had a video of these Christian in Jerusalem preaching, and then Orthodox Jews spitting. The Orthodox Jewish community, they don't really like necessarily Christianity. And I have heard and I do know that when they walk past the church, they will spit on the ground in sort of contempt the fact that this church is in our country and this is we're Jewish and things like that. And there has been spitting instances in the past. These things do happen, and it's not nice and it's not good. But when you look at what's happening all around the world, we have a lady that goes to preach in Hyde Park and she preached to Muslims and she was attacked. When you look at what's been happening, there was a pastor that was preaching in his church and he was kidnapped.
That's
So
right.
these things happen, all around the world. So it's not that, oh, Israel is so bad and the Jews are so bad. And I think we've got to be very, very careful that we don't fall into this trap that we see something and automatically jump, oh, see, this is what the Jews are like. Because really, that's actually anti-Semitism.
That's
When
right.
you're holding the Jews to a different account to anybody else, there is trouble, there is difficulties all around the world.
Yeah,
And it's not just in Israel. Israel has its problems and its difficulties like everybody else.
exactly.
And,
Uh,
the Jews have had a lot of hostility towards the Christians because we've treated the Jews terribly as
That's right.
Christians,
That's right.
with the anti-Semitism that we've had. And the like, Hitler was supposed to be Christian, and this is Hitler who's, I'm not saying he was Christian, but you know what I mean, from a
Yeah, that
Christian
was
country,
the
Christian,
prevailing
and
assumption.
then he
Yeah.
killed 6 million. And then in our own countries, the Great Britain, they threw out the Jews, Spain threw out the Jews,
Hmm.
and all these things that are happening, all these things that we've maybe done in the name of Christianity. Martin Luther, who was the reformer, he wrote a lot of anti-Semitic material,
Terrible
and
material.
Hitler used that material in his persecution against the Jews. So we
Right.
as Christians, we've done some terrible, terrible things.
I mean, to your point, the Jewish people have a collective memory of 1800 years of persecution in the name of Christianity or under the um, protection or encouragement of the church or preached from the pulpit. So yeah, it's kind of an affront to go into their own community and then sort of elbow your way in and think you're doing them a favor. That's for sure.
It's not
Not to
respectful at
mention,
all.
no,
Yeah,
it's not respectful. And the same when people do point these things out as if, the Jews are so terrible to Christians, they fail to point out when Christians are persecuted elsewhere, in Africa or in cities, or men and women are arrested for praying in the West, in front of certain organizations. So it really is a double standard. And while the
yeah.
spitting, as you say, is not nice, and there's plenty of Israelis who don't condone that conduct, it pales in comparison, to some of the persecution that Christians receive elsewhere. That's for sure. Paul,
Yeah.
we just love to hear your insights and learn what you witness and live every day. We want to thank you for your time today and sharing these insights. Is there anything else you want our viewers and listeners to know, before we say goodbye? And hopefully, again, we'll have you on in a few months for another update.
Just continue to pray for Israel, pray for the Holy Land. Obviously, we've still got the big issue of the hostages that are in Gaza. We need to be
Right.
praying that they would be released. Israel is celebrating its birthday next week, next
That's right.
Thursday. So
75.
we want to see a joyous and happy time. And wouldn't it be great if all the hostages were released
That
for
would
that
be
Israel's anniversary and birthday time? Looking at it on the same point of view, Palestinians see it as the day of catastrophe, which
enough.
is the Nakba, where they feel that they lost so much, but they were offered a state in 1948 in the same way that Israel was offered a state, and they rejected it.
Yeah.
And that, now today they're fighting for a little piece of land, which what they could have actually have had in 1948 if they'd accepted it, but they didn't. A mistake on their part. But do pray, particularly for the hostages, that they would be released at this time because we
Absolutely.
still need to see them released. There's over 20 people still in Gaza. There's more bodies there. I'm hoping to do an interview very soon with a rabbi whose son was killed and the body was taken into
Oh,
Gaza. So I'm wanting to do an interview with him about the difficulties that he's been through
Wow.
And we just heard last week that he's found out that Hamas have his body, and he said that was good news for him because at least they have a rough idea where it is, not quite, but they I think they know where it is, but they don't know who has it, something like that. So very difficult times because this is a family, although their son has died. So there's a sense of ending in that sense. They still want the body back
Exactly.
because it doesn't end until they get the body back. But for some of these people who've actually got hostages that are still alive, it's ongoing and you don't know, it's ongoing and they could be killed. And
That's
that
right.
would be a tragedy. It's ongoing and they could get it back and then the story closes. But it's still ongoing since October the 7th,
Hmm.
2023.
That's right.
And the
Yeah.
pain and the hurt is still there and still very, very real to those people.
Wow. Yeah. So Paul will be praying for that, and definitely all the best with your discussion with that rabbi. I can't wait to hear that. And you just have a blessed day, and I hope that your week, when you take your friend into Israel, that is a really enlightening time and a blessed time for that Palestinian to witness what had happened in the Gaza envelope, and that will bring to fruition just some good outcomes for that person to take that testimony back to their community.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Paul.